Hey y'all, it's Taylor, and today I'm going over 3 features that are exclusive to the M4 iPad Pro. You won't find them on any other iPad in the Apple lineup at the time of this video. Each of these contributes to the iPad Pro experience in their own unique way, so let's take a look at each and see what they have to offer. Quick disclaimer before I start, this video is not sponsored and I paid for everything in this video with my own money. The first exclusive feature is the screen on the iPad Pro. It's the only screen in the iPad lineup that is an OLED. OLEDs are able to completely turn off their individual pixels, which means that blacks on the screen look incredibly good. As a comparison, here's the newly released A17 iPad mini, which has a typical LCD panel that uses a backlight to illuminate the screen. As a result of the backlight, the blacks get way more lifted on the mini than the Pro. The Pro screen can get up to 1600 nits of peak brightness in HDR, which makes for an incredible viewing experience, no matter if you're watching content or playing games in HDR. SDR content is equally amazing. With 1000 nits of brightness in SDR, you can watch content and play games outdoors in direct sunlight and still see the screen perfectly. The only thing to be aware of is the glare that you'll probably get if you have the glossy screen configuration. You can opt for a nano texture display on the 1TB and 2TB models, which would be ideal if you're primarily using the iPad Pro outside, as that matte finish will reduce the glare a lot on the screen. Furthermore, the screen has ProMotion, which allows the refresh rate to get up to 120 Hz, and this adds a layer of smoothness and responsiveness to the iPad Pro that makes it just feel incredibly snappy. Opening apps, scrolling through pages within apps, and swiping between home screens and iPadOS all feels incredibly fluid with ProMotion. You can get the screen in 11 inches or 13 inches, and both sizes have the same exact feature set. My iPad Pro has the 13-inch screen, which I opted for so that I could use the iPad Pro more like a laptop when I wanted to. I set it on the Magic Keyboard, and now I have more of that laptop feel. Which brings me to the second exclusive feature, the Magic Keyboard. Now, I realize this is more of an accessory than a feature, but considering it's a unique Magic Keyboard just for the M4 iPad Pros, I'm going to include it. Just like the screen, the keyboard will differ in size based on which screen size of iPad Pro you get. The difference is in there though, as all Magic Keyboards have the same features, starting with the all aluminum design in the hinge and the keyboard deck. The hinge has a great range of movement, which should accommodate most viewing angles you'd find on a laptop. There's also a USB-C port on the hinge that runs at USB 3 speeds, which is 10 gigabits per second. This is pretty much only useful for charging the iPad. I plugged my Samsung T7 external SSD drive in and nothing happens in iPadOS. There's no indicator light on the drive itself, which is pretty lame. The keyboard features backlighting like you'd find on Apple MacBooks. There's also a function row at the top now, which is new compared to the previous iPad Pro keyboards, but not new compared to the 10.9-inch regular iPad. That iPad has a Magic Keyboard with a function row and trackpad, while also having an A14, which is a pretty old chip at this point. That making its way over to the Pro keyboards is a welcome and much overdue addition. The keyboard itself is great to type on. It's as good as any keyboard Apple makes for their MacBooks. The trackpad is large and it's glass, so it feels very high quality when moving your finger on it. It's also got the same haptic engine you'd find in Apple's MacBook trackpads, which is to say this is one of the best you'll find. The haptics are nice and tactile, giving you the sensation of a click, and it does so no matter where you press on the trackpad. The keyboard folds up with no gaps into a slim form factor that is easy to bring with you on the go. And that brings me to the third and final feature, which is the sheer thinness of the iPad Pro. The 13-inch is 5.1 millimeters thick, and it's the only feature that's exclusive to the larger 13-inch iPad Pro. It's the thinnest iPad Apple has ever made, and it really is incredible when you actually have it in hand. I know that sounds silly gushing about the thinness, but what makes this particularly special is just how rigid it feels. I mean, there is no creaking, no bending, no movement whatsoever when holding this iPad. It really feels like you're holding some sci-fi computer that was made in the way distant future. Sadly, the fantasy is quickly destroyed when you realize it's just running iPadOS. Seriously, Apple, put macOS on this, or at least give us the option. If Apple did that, it would propel this iPad Pro into the primary computer for a lot of people, in my opinion. It's way thinner than the 16-inch MacBook Pro, it's thinner than the 13-inch MacBook Air, and it's thinner than the iPad mini that was recently released with the A17. It's even thinner than the Apple Pencil Pro, which means there's not a lot of material holding that pencil on there. So be careful if you're bumping this thing around, because the pencil will fly off if you bump it in the wrong way. If you're interested in my thoughts on the long-term use of the iPad Pro, be sure to check out my 6-month review video where I go in depth with even more features, as well as my opinions on the iPad Pro as a device in general. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.